Welcome to Tony's Bonsai. A few videos ago I had 3 trees that I was unsure what to do with, so I asked you, my subscribers, for your opinions on what should be done, and in this video today I'm going to put that into practice, and I'll start off with this windswept / cascading hawthorn. There was an overwhelming majority of people who said that this should be turned into a cascade, but I did have some really interesting comments, and what they said was, it's already a cascade, you just have to change the planting angle. And I do agree with what they say to a certain extent, but it would mean that this was very much leaning over, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I think I'd prefer to keep that a bit more upright. So I'm going to do somewhere between the two. I'm going to apply some wire to this, bend this down, and then when I do repot this, possibly in the spring or the year after, I'll just change the planting angle a little. I've just applied some fairly thick wire. I think it might be 6mm, that wire. It was quite thick to bend and it does seem overkill, but I've done this before and I know that if I don't use something substantial, it just doesn't hold and it doesn't allow the trunk to set in its new position. With this I know there'll be absolutely no problem because I can just do whatever I want and it's going nowhere. So I can just use this and there, I've kind of anchored it to the side of the pot using that wire. From this view here we can see the sort of structure of these pads, which is quite good. I'm fairly happy with that. And this wire will stay on there now probably till next summer when it can come off, and this will hold most of that new shape. The next challenge was what to do with this freaky weird oak, and there was no consensus on this one. The one thing everyone agreed with pretty much was that this little sucker at the back, that had to go, so I'm removing that. There were ideas that I should cut these back to here. There were suggestions that this goes, you know, completely, but then also people were saying, why turn something very interesting into something ordinary? And I kind of agree really when I think about it, and I think I can bend this to become another of these freaky trunks. And so if my choice is ordinary or freaky, I'm going to choose freaky every time. So I'll put some wire around this. I find that young oak like this is fairly flexible, so I don't need anything too thick, but again I tend to have I'd rather go on the thicker side. So I think this is maybe 3.5mm, 4mm wire. I'll just jam it in the soil. And then I'll need the pliers actually, just to get a bit of purchase on that. So I'll use my gym pliers to hold that wire there in place. And I can just coil this nicely up the tree. No concerns about its holding power, because I know there's going to be plenty of holding power on this wire. So I can just avoid all the branches, and there's loads of new buds on this for next spring to pop out. I get my second pair of pliers and just take that up there like that, and I'm ready to design and style. And the question is, what do I do with this? Where do I go with it in terms of how this new trunk interacts with these two? I've chosen this angle so you can see the tree from the back, because it doesn't really work from this angle as it is at the moment. So I'm thinking that this trunk will be better coming out in this direction. So what I can do is take this trunk across like that, and then kind of around Now that's getting quite weird. Looking from above, you can now see how this comes up here. I'm just going to remove that leaf. And this is the idea that this one will wrap round the back and then come round and kind of possibly down here. So I'm really taking this down below this thicker trunk. Back around from the side view, we can now see that the trunk comes down, comes below this one. And I'm going to try and bring it this way by grabbing the wire at the back and bringing it round like that. That's better. And then from here, I'm thinking if I can then bring this one up like that, we're getting something going on. This is definitely a better view from here. And a couple of these leaves that are just pointing downwards, they can go. They'll be dropping off shortly anyway in the autumn. And we can see now what I've kind of achieved. And main thing is I've got these leaves facing up, ready for next year. I think this is kind of my favourite angle for this tree at the moment, where you can really see these twisting, sort of contorted branches or trunks working their way around. And it's definitely different, definitely different. Regular viewers know this is the kind of stuff I love to do, but if you're new to the channel, these kind of interesting, different experiments, trying new things with different species is kind of what I'm all about. And if you want to follow me on my journey, you know what to do, hit subscribe. And let's get on with the final tree, which is a hawthorn. And I got loads of great suggestions. Thanks again everybody who commented and interacted. I got loads of good ideas off people, but the one I like best, he's got a fantastic name. He's called Venstenfulf. Now that's a name. He had some good ideas, and with this, he said, take the smaller branch off at the first blah blah blah. This is the bit I'm interested in. Turn the trunk into a dragon's spine. Gotta love that. So I'm thinking really going crazy and zigzagging it and just seeing, I mean, it might last, you know, it might work out long term, or I might end up cutting it off down the line, but I think for now, it's a great option. So here's the tree. It's got some nice movement lower down, but as I said in the initial video, it just splits into two trunks, which I'm just not that keen on. The thinner of the two trunks is going to be easier to bend, so the thick one just goes. I've just applied the main strong wire. I think that's 3mm, and that should easily be able to bend this thicker part of the trunk. I'm going to apply a second piece of wire, and one of the things that always perplexed me really in bonsai was why people wired right next to the other wire, because to me it seems natural to go equally spaced between for strength. And I was watching an interview with it was Bonsai Mirai, where he interviewed a chap called Dan Robinson. I loved the interview, I thought it was fascinating. And Dan Robinson wires in with aluminium. And he actually talked about this idea of wiring wire next to wire. And apparently it's only done just for the aesthetics, just because it looks better. Which is it's fine, I don't have a problem with it, but I don't see the point with a tree that's in development, because it's almost like, kind of who cares what it looks like. What I want this wire to do is do its job. which is to support the branch as I bend it. And so as I wire, I try to wire as near as I can anyway, to sort of in between the first wire with the second piece. And it does add more support. So it's nice when you hear something like that from somebody that kind of answers a question that you were thinking about. And like I say, to me it never made sense. There. So my question now is, what do I do in terms of creating this dragon back? And the tree moves obviously this way, so I do think I want to get it going backwards with a fairly sharp bend here. So I'm doing a sweeping bend to start off. And I'd like to take this right back down. So that's extreme. But with these young shoots you can get away with that. Now to bring it back up on itself. So I'm supporting this bend here and bringing it right back up like that. I don't think I can go any more severe than that. Now, as I'm doing this, I'm thinking to myself, if I go back down, it's never going to look like a dragon spine. This just doesn't seem like it's going to work to me. Let's try it anyway. So let's go in there. So we've got up, down, down, and now I think this needs to come just up one more time. If I see that the trunk has split a bit there where it wasn't fully supported, so I do have to bring that back round now. So I tried, but where this had split, that's no good, and if I don't support that, then that won't make it. And the way I support it is just by getting a piece of wire and just wrapping it round that trunk where it had split, just like that. I've done this on quite a few trees and it just seems to hold everything together. So that's as much as I can do in terms of the bending of that way. And it's quite interesting. And if I rotate this round now here, I think what I may as well do is, this movement that comes this way, that's quite subtle, I can just bring that over a little bit just to increase that bend. And perhaps from the top now, the tree can move in that direction. In some ways, I'm a little disappointed that I wasn't able to generate this extreme zigzag of shape. But on the other hand, I've got a lovely side branch coming from the outside of a bend here. I've got some nice movement and a twisty, contorted tree. If this can be allowed to grow now for the next couple of years, probably take the wire off in around 6 months' time, I think going forward could be quite an interesting tree, and that's kind of the purpose of it all. I hope you enjoyed this video. I certainly enjoyed working on these trees, and it'll be interesting to see how these develops, as it's always interesting with all my trees. The forecast is for it to absolutely dump it down for the next 2 days, which is why I've been shooting a few videos while I get the chance to upload this weekend. And As always, thanks for joining me. Have a great day and I'll see you soon.